Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Veil background information. We're doing a creature profile and it's still in the sea monsters section, and we're doing about Lorelei and Melusine. So technically they're more river monsters than they are sea monsters, but I thought to throw them in here anyway. But as usual, we do a quote from a story where one of them is mentioned. Then we do the background information I've used to develop this creature within my own mythology, and then I give you the creature profile. So let's get into this. You're looking at me as if I were Lorelei luring you into doom. I didn't mean to fall in love with you or get you interested in me, but I mean, to me, you're the Lorelei that lured me out of my comfort zone. None of this is getting me off the hook, is it? Quote from the Viper King. Although considered similar to sirens or water spirits, there are two particular figures in river folklore that are just a bit different from their siren counterparts, and certainly are not from mythology but rather folklore, this being Lorelei and Melusine. There are two individual female water entities I wanted to talk about. Now, as they are not described as akin to birds like siren or akin to fish like mermaids, but are still regarded as siren-like, I've separated them out to represent a water spirit that is not seen in a group and doesn't eat her victims. But I'm talking about them in the sea monster thing because my thought was there's enough of a sea connection with the siren and mermaid type thing that they probably can be in those areas as well. I know, me babbling on. So let's start off with Lorelei, a being of German folklore that's thought of as a water spirit, is said to have been a maiden that threw herself into the Rhine River over a faithless lover. It is said she was transformed into a siren and would sing out in the evening and lure fishermen into rocky waters or crashing on dangerous riverbeds. Now, the folklore seems to be focused around a rock jutting into the Rhine near St. Gorshausen, called Lorelei, but the development of the siren attributes are thought to come from the echo the rock causes because of its position on the riverbed, but particularly by writings. In fact, the story is often thought to have been created by Clemens Brentano, but there have been several poems and stories about it, with possibly the most well known being Der Lorelei in 1824 by Heinrich Heine, which has been set to various pieces of music, and for those outside of Germany is often our main introduction to the story. I remember too that in several Japanese manga and anime they mention Lorelei as a being, and well, now you know what it is. Now, the story of Lorelei does bear a bit of similarity to some of the stories about Rusalka in Slavic folklore, although there are variants on Rusalka and how they come about. Some claim them as the returned souls of women who drowned themselves because of love affairs gone wrong or worse. The idea that a woman scorned could come back to injure others is an enduring idea in folklore, and certainly the stories of La Llorona in Mexican folklore. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that badly. Could be deemed as one of these kinds of creatures. Of course, La Llorona is thought to be based on the story of a woman that appears weeping near waterways, mourning for the children she drowned out of jealousy of their father abandoning her and them. But with La Llorona, there are clear links to the story of Medea and how she killed her children by Jason out of vengeance against him. But there are also stories that she's actually based on the indigenous woman that Cortez has as had as a concubine. There are reports too that it's a mixing of an Aztec goddess of motherhood who has a similar tragedy linked to her children. But like Lorelei and Rusalka, these are spirits of the dead or ghosts that seek revenge. Now we talk about Melusine, who's different but also linked as a water spirit, and coming from European folklore with particular prominence around Luxembourg. She is often depicted as a beautiful woman from the waist up, but below has been drawn fish-like, serpent-like, or even like a little evil, or even a little dragon-like, sometimes even having wings. Now, for their mermaid-like characteristics and for the links with the previous two sirenesque beings, that's why I put them amongst the sea monsters, as Melusine is sometimes also described as akin to Lemire. She's depicted in a lot of works of art and is commonly recognised for the fact that they fit one of the traditional tropes or types in folklore and storytelling, that is, the bestial bridegroom, or in this case the bride, alike to our King Lindworm. The story is used to claim several regal households as descendants of Melusine, and stories mixed to include the Melusine as something akin to mermaids, nymphs, earth elementals, guardian spirits, succubi, or even banshee, depending on how the story is perceived. The name is thought to come from the Latin melus, or for melodious, or pleasant, and potentially from a Poitevin legend of the Melusine, leader of a band of fairies who built Roman edifices around the countryside. I've talked of these sorts of things before, but the Melusine story is famous for the art based upon it, and it's not clear how old the story is. Only that the literary Melusine tales were compiled by Jean de Arras in about 1382 to 1394, give or take. So the story roughly goes that during the time of the Crusades, not giving a specific crusade, so could be any. Elinus, the King of Albany, or Alba, as in Scotland, goes out hunting in the forest to cope with the death of his wife, whom he had one son named Naphis with. He comes across the well of First, where he meets a beautiful fay named Pressine. The two fall in love, and Elinus proposes to her. She agrees, but only if he swears to never see her when she births or bathes their children. You can already see the themes, the Pandora's box trope, coming in this. So he promises, they marry, she gives birth to triplet girls called Melusine, Melior, and Palatine. When Naphis informs his father of the news, his dad breaks the promise, and immediately Pressine and her daughter has escaped to the lost Isle of Avalon, typical of stories at these times, to try and link to Arthurian mythology that was popular at this period, with Avalon there. The girls grow up with their mother, taking them to a mountain every morning to look at where they would have lived. On her 15th birthday, Melusine asks her mother why they left Alba, and hearing their father broke his promise, Melusine seeks revenge and convinces her sisters to aid her. As you can now tell, linking into the others above in this respect for wanting revenge. They use their magical powers to lock their father with his riches in a mountain called Brandelos. Their mother gets angry, and to punish them for killing their father, seemingly, Palatine is imprisoned in the mountain instead, Melior in the castle, and Melusine is expelled and cursed to take the form of a two-tailed serpent from the waist down every Saturday. If a man ever marries Melusine, he must never see her on Saturdays, and if he keeps his oath, Melusine will live a contented life with him. But if he breaks it, she'll remain a serpent and appear to the noble house in her monstrous form. Spend 3 days lamenting whenever a descendant dies or the fortress changes hands. Therefore, we can probably assume Pressine had some similar thing going on, and it passed on to her daughter. So, coming to the end now, or rather the part that most stories speak of without explaining the situation of the mother and the curse beforehand. Melusine settles in a forest near Poitiers, or Poitou in some variants in France. Distraught Count Raymondin of Poitiers meets her after accidentally killing his uncle. She consoles him and he proposes to her, but she lays down the condition he can never see her on a Saturday. For 10 years he keeps his promises. She bears 10 sons. Some variants have been deformed, yet still loved by their parents to point out the curse a little more obviously. She organises the construction of his fancy castle that earns him wealth, land, and power, but still Ramondin is curious, and so are others. Goaded by family who are suspicious she doesn't attend mass, he is coaxed to peeking into her chamber. He witnesses her half-serpent form bathing. Now, some shortened versions have him knocking the door down and claiming her a demon, so she flies out of the window. But this longer story has him keeping his secret. However, when one of his now adult sons murders their brother, grieving Ramondin blames Melusine for the death, calling her a serpent, and so she transforms into a dragon, provides him with 2 magic rings, and flies off never to be seen again. She only returns at night to nurse her two youngest children, who are still infants. Bit of a lackluster ending, but a sort of reverse of the Swan Maiden and Selkie stories, wherein they are trapped. But on all of these figures, they are females scorned and related to water, and in many cases, their children. Now, in the Vale, there is demonic influence and not really any ghosts, so these beings are sort of pushed together as the lone vengeful water maidens mistaken for fae, nymphs, and mermaids, but always travelling alone. So here's what I've made of them in the Vale, where they are often just described as water maidens. So side neutral, created by, often with demonic ancestry, they have innate demonic abilities that only come through when scorned. They are thought to be actually born from demons and those mortal beings they have fallen in love with. Created for, naturally spawned out of love. Created when, after the creation of the veil. Physical description often appear as beautiful women that are often drawn to water, but once a week or when birthing or bathing, their demonic aspects are on display, and as long as their mates never see, their demonic powers are never awakened. Their demonic aspect is sometimes twin serpent tails, fish tails, or a more draconic style form that doesn't match other veil species. However, the Melusine can take on full dragon forms that mean they will be banished into hell if found, so it's incredibly important they are not seen with their demonic traits. Abilities. Apart from beauty and long life, they can bring good luck and fortune with their partners, producing healthy children that are deeply loved. But should their rules be betrayed, or worse still, their heart, depending on the kind of demonic traits they have, they can change shape into monstrous forms, and to punish their mates with their will punish their children. It was long assumed that they murdered their children, but it later seems that they actually hide them within the dream world, so the children can grow up and only know good things and happy things, but it means they don't get to to fully live. However, they also have the ability, when angry, to lure people to danger by the water, often punishing those they feel have betrayed their partners or might do so. Most known for luring people to some form of doom for betraying their partners. Weaknesses. When their form is revealed, they can be killed with angelic weapons as well as be bound down into hell, but they have immortal hearts, so damage to this heart can kill them. Number, there are very few. They are incredibly rare, hence they are thought of simply by individual names wandering in specific regions, and it is thought there might only actually be about 100 or less of them. Well-known beings, Melusine, Lorelei, and La Llorona are well-known individuals. Characters in stories to be determined. I've got ideas, but nothing specific. Final comments. I know they may seem out of place with everything, but these guys fitted together well for something within this category of sea monsters because of their link to water and mix up in their stories with sirens and mermaids. I know I could have done them in a river beast section, but I don't know if I'm going to go that far. But thank you for listening, and liking, subscribing, sharing, whatever. It all helps me in the end. So thank you.